for letting us do this. I really wanted to have this opportunity for the students, just so that you guys could see a different way that education is important in our district and just what these students are up to. Again, my name is Jenna Spain. My role is a Title I reading teacher and a talented and gifted teacher. So these students are currently in grades 1 through 4. They're going to share with you what they're up to, and I'm also going to chime in occasionally and talk a little bit about a few of the other details. All right.
Welcome to our presentation on the Legacy Project, a historical timeline of Maquoketa elementary education.
This project involves talented and gifted students from Cardinal and Briggs who are researching the rich history of our schools.
All right, this is where I'm going to chime in. So this right here is an example I wanted to show. We had a different student who is going to present this portion, but they are absent today. So there are currently 18 townships within Jackson County, and 11 of those townships make up what is Maquoketa Community School District. And so in a township could possibly be around 6, 8, or maybe even up to 12 different one-room schoolhouses. And I used artificial intelligence to put together an image that would be somewhat what the poster will look like. So there will be images of the one-room schoolhouses that students will help collect information on today, as well as there will be captions that will explain when those one-room schoolhouses were in operation within Iowa. And in a little bit, some of you might be familiar, there was a legislation that happened in 1966 that required all one-room schoolhouses to close down so that they could enter into a district that had 12th grade. I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go on, okay?
Our goal is to actively research the educational history of our community and take ownership of our story.
We want to preserve the history of schooling in and around Maquoketa while building a bridge toward our future together.
Malia.
This project was made possible by a grant from the Community Foundation of the Greater Dubuque.
And just to add with that, you can see where it says grants in place. They are large supporters for rural school districts, and Maquoketa counts as a rural school district. So this really does tie in really well with how we came from one-room schoolhouses, and now we're kind of consolidating into one final elementary school within our district.
Students in grades 1 through 4 are the primary participants in this historical research.
All research and creative ideas will directly shape the final living timeline display.
We expect this project to create a permanent display at the new elementary school that celebrates the evolution of education in Maquoketa. By documenting our collective story, we are building a sense of belonging and unity for all students.
This shared identity will support a smooth transition as we move into the new unified elementary school.
We make sure to respect the legacy of the past while also welcoming the new era at Maquoketa Elementary.
So many of you know that Second Ward was the original school in the location where Briggs was. And then, so I don't have a picture of Briggs there, but then this is a mock-up of what Maquoketa Elementary will look like. And if you haven't driven by there on Corey Street and 5th Street, you will currently see they're working on putting the footings in and whatnot right now.
We will be taking an active role in designing this timeline, which helps us to grow as contributors to our community. Our research wouldn't be possible without our amazing partners at Jackson County Historical Society. They have graciously opened their doors at Clinton Engines, allowing us to explore real historical documents and artifacts to uncover our school story.
Bryant. Some kids had to step in today. We've had quite a few absences, and so we've got some great leaders in this group who want to step forward and take on extra lines. So very impressed.
Now that we have shared our project goals, we want to show you what we are learning about with one-room schoolhouses and what we will experience during our upcoming field trip. Our future trip will take us to North Bend One-Room Schoolhouse. We are thankful for the opportunity to visit and learn. Long ago, a one-room schoolhouse had just one classroom where a single teacher taught all ages together.
In the early days of Iowa, students ranging from ages 5 to 14 would all learn in the same room.
Back then, there were no school buses, so sometimes children had to walk 3 miles to school in the snow. Inside, you would find a wooden desk, a chalkboard, and a wood burning stove for heat.
This was part of their experience today at the Historical Society. They actually had to sit in the desks and experience kind of probably a little how painful it was to sit like that all day. And then just, you can kind of see that picture right there on the bottom. That is a photograph that's up on the wall in Briggs. I'm really hoping that they memorialize it by putting it in and it continues to stay into the new school, just to kind of show where we came from.
Students used small chalkboards called slates instead of paper and played games like jump rope during recess.
And I'm going to have a few students hold up some different artifacts. Donald, will you hold up the different slates? Lily, will you hold up 2 of those books right there? And big thank you to Betty Miller. We'll have another slide to talk about her. But Betty's letting us borrow a couple books that were readers back then. One's a spelling reader. They will be doing a spelling bee the day that they're at a one-room schoolhouse. And they'll have all day to study a list. So this will be really interesting. And then Marnie, will you grab the other 2 books actually before the bell? Yeah. So McGuffey readers, which Marnie has in her hands, are some of the more traditional books that when I was doing a lot of research showed up a little bit more, and those readers were per grade level. So these, this is for the 3rd grade and for 5th grade. So you can go ahead and set them over. I'm going to have Belle bring over the bell. Do a little jingle. Perfect. So a traditional teacher bell right here. So that was something that they will hear the day that they go on their trip. And then, Marnie, will you grab that water basin there? We talked about today how things were semi-sanitary in the sense that someone such as a farmer might bring over water in the morning to the one-room schoolhouse, or there might be students that need to go and collect water, and that was the water basin where all day long they would wash their hands in. So lots of sickness going around. Kind of scary. And then I also have a ladle there. Will you hold that up? This might be similar to the idea of like dipping in a bucket to get some clean water to drink. And I think over the time they figured out how unsanitary that was. So today the kids got to see a water cooler type jug that later came into play so that there wasn't so much contamination, and students could then bring cups to school that they kept in order to get a drink. Because there was no running water. And we've talked about when we go, there's an outdoor bathroom. All right, Emmett.
The teacher was often a young woman who lived with a local family and earned only $25 to $40 a month.
And so this wasn't the same all the time, and especially in Iowa, it did change over time. When I did speak with Betty, she's out there in the audience, will you wave, Betty? She's been really important to helping me out. There was a time when things did change and women were allowed to be married. Today, they heard the rules. We heard that if they were to get married, they might lose their job. We heard that if they were hanging out with company that were men that weren't necessarily a brother or a father, they could lose their job for that. So there were some special expectations, and it was also that sometimes they lived within their community as well. And so as time went on and we had to make some modifications in order to have these wonderful teachers, and luckily now I can be married and have kids and be a wonderful teacher too. So once they made those accommodations, it made it so that we could have more teachers within our community. And then they could also drive to the school because we had cars then too. So I'm just going to read a little excerpt. Betty Miller, she has this book in the historical area of the public library. And it's just a nice little bound book such as this. But there is a really nice organization of Jackson County Association of Retired Teachers and School Personnel that she collected different memories from. Some are very short, like a paragraph, and some are a couple pages long, just to kind of see what the history was about. And this is just a snippet of the message that Bonnie had to share about her experiences. In my years teaching, I incited children to discover and experience a love of learning from reading to research. It was fun to inspire them to grow in studying. I found if you encouraged each child, they tried harder. Trying to do their best brought a sense of self-worth and taught them to believe in themselves. I have a lot of memories in my bookcase of 33 years. It was 33 years of shared joys and some sorrows, which ended in 1990 when I retired. And she has helped me out quite a bit. She has given me basically a lesson plan to follow for our whole one-room experience day when we go to North Bend. So I have a lot of thankfulness to give you for that. So thank you very much. And you can, I should kind of circle back to, in her 33 years, you can kind of see the different locations that did start in one-room schoolhouses. Betty herself had experience in a one-room schoolhouse going to school until 7th grade. So then you can see she moved into town. Actually, I'm going to point here, Watson was kind of a special school because it is out on Highway 64. That school had indoor plumbing and a telephone. So when the legislation took place, and it had a cellar downstairs that was like a basement that was actually a little bit safer. So when legislation changed in 1966, Betty, you were actually out there for a little bit. They kept that school going because we needed more space in Maquoketa. Briggs was not built until the 1950s, and Cardinal wasn't built yet. So we needed more space. And I believe, Betty, you also told me that you taught kindergarten on the 2nd floor in the middle school. So, and those little kids needed space to run around. There's no playground there. A one-room schoolhouse also held a special meeting place for different community members within their township. So within a township, there were different one-room schoolhouses, probably about 2 miles apart from each other so that they could walk. And it was usually something with someone in that area that owned that land that let that land go forth to have a school built on it. That's wonderful about Iowa in general, is just how much we cared about having education for our children. So they had spelling bees, which I already kind of mentioned. They're going to get a list of spelling words to study. There were Christmas programs that were really important back in the day. This is just an image there that kind of showed how special it kind of was back then. There was something called box socials. I kind of talked to the kids a little bit about it in the sense that it was basically a lunch. The box was decorated that the lunch was in, and then they had an auction, and typically it was a woman or a younger girl that created that box, and then they had an auction, and usually it was maybe a husband or a boyfriend or just a boy that would buy it, and then they would sit and eat lunch together. So that's why it's that box social, an opportunity to sit and chat. No cell phones, no internet, so that was probably pretty good back then. End of the year picnics, where kids played games out in the yard or field there, and had they would probably bring out large pieces of plywood to put on sawhorses to have tables, and then also they used it as community meetings and voting areas. So these buildings were very important to Iowa, and at one time we had one of the largest number of one-room schoolhouses. She's ready.
By 1900, Iowa had more one-room schools than any other state, with over 6,500 across the countryside.
So 9 one-room schoolhouses about on average for every township. So that's just kind of interesting to think about how clustered it really was out there. So essentially today their research could lead them to have over 100 one-room schoolhouses easily within our Maquoketa district.
These schools eventually closed as cars and buses made it easier for families to travel to longer modern buildings.
And this is basically where in the 50s and 60s there was some legislation that took place. And we're really lucky today because Linda, I'm going to point you out. Linda here, her dad was L.L. Long. He was a long-time county superintendent. That's a different role than necessarily having a district superintendent. And he, according to Betty, I'm going to say a little thing there. Betty said he'd just show up. You better be following the schedule. So very interesting back then to think about that. Now I have a principal that comes into my room quite frequently. I've had the superintendent come in. I just know the expectations are a little different than what they were back then. So then within that time that L.L. Long was that county superintendent, a mandate went out that said that one-room schoolhouses only went to 8th grade. And so in order to kind of make a more unified situation that all kids were getting a good amount of schooling, they decided that by 1966, every one-room schoolhouse that if not connected to a community district that had 12th grade needed to do so. And so a lot of schools at that time kind of just had to make a decision that we were going to basically run until we can't anymore. And a lot of them, their close date was July 1st, 1966. And that's when we have schools in our own district that were community school or one-room schoolhouses that moved into Maquoketa at that time. And that's when buses were really a lot more available to bus those kids around. And also, I just want to point out, this is Mill Rock. You've kind of been noticing a lot of the old schoolhouses that have been pictured on here. All of them are from our district. Mill Rock has a connection with our interpretive center here. We were going to go there. The problem is what you can't see, and this is what happens to buildings that are over 100 years old and not in and used every day. There was a ceiling issue, and they were willing to clean it up for us. But we decided instead to see if North Bend, who has a private group that keeps their one-room schoolhouse keep up going, so we partnered with them and we're going to go there on April 9th for a field trip. and I'm going to talk a little bit more. So the one-room schoolhouses of today, this is just, some of you might remember. If you are regular community members, you might remember Bridgeport, out over where Cardinal is, past out there. At one time, it looked really nice. And then over time, it just became dilapidated. And so this is what I remember from my childhood, and now it no longer exists anymore. They knocked it down. Sand Prairie, you can kind of see over there, just the foundation, and that it might be less than that now. I don't know, I can't remember exactly the date on that. So there's a lot of different places where you might know there's a location of a one-room schoolhouse, but it's no longer there at all. However, some people have taken it and they've turned it into a possible museum, or they've turned, a lot of them have been turned into homes. So, or a community building such as North Bend.
Our legacy project connects generations and ensures that the history of Maquoketa schools will never be forgotten.
So with the grant money, we received over $1,000, and ultimately what's going to happen with that money is the students are going to help in creating a large poster like what was shown towards the beginning of the slideshow to recognize every one-room schoolhouse, and not just one-room schoolhouses. We also have our ward schools. You did notice the picture of the academy was in there, Cardinal, Briggs, all of those are important to our history. So all of them will be noted on that map and talk about their years that they were running, what year they opened, what year they closed. So we're going to partner with A&P Graphics, and they're going to assist us with creating our final poster, which ultimately what we would hope will happen is that after Maquoketa Elementary, I believe that's going to be the final name of where Briggs is located right now, we'll have this display for hopefully years to come. And just like they said, it's a living timeline or a living display. It will always be there. It won't be like a time capsule that has to be dug up years later. No, we can just go see it in real time, anytime. Yeah. And then, so thank you for being patient, because I know we've not used our whole entire hour. I knew that might happen, but these kids are up for questions. And if you didn't know that every state has a quarter, and Iowa's quarter in 2004 was the one-room schoolhouse. That's how important education is to Iowa. So it says foundation and education, and every student will receive a quarter as kind of their memorial of doing this project, so that someday hopefully they'll look back and they'll say, hey, you know, I went to a school that changed, just like other people have gone to a school that had history that also changed. So at this time, if you guys have any questions, we're open for anything.
Can I just make a statement? I'm from Wisconsin, and I went to a one-room school just like this and everything the same. But up in the middle of the state of Wisconsin, they had a 2-week potato vacation. Potatoes are harvested in the middle of October or November. So it was in the school schedule that you just shut down school for them 2 weeks, and all the kids and the teachers harvested potatoes.
And I'm sure that's one thing that had to take place even here within Jackson County, is just adapting for the agricultural component, since a lot of these kids were farm kids that went to the one-room schoolhouses.
And when I lived in North Carolina, the same thing happened. My children would have that great first day of school, and then in about 2 weeks the tobacco crop would be ripe, and the schools would close down and everybody go pick tobacco.
Speaking of potatoes, my mother went to a one-room schoolhouse about 3 miles away, and on cold winter mornings, she would carry her lunch would be a hot potato. And that would keep her hands warm on the way to school, and then that was lunch.
It's funny you say that because I have read a lot of like stories of past teachers and past students that had gone to one-room schoolhouses, and one of the people said, like, I put 2 hot potatoes in each one of my pockets when I walked to school so my hands would stay warm. And then I also had lunch.
I remember when the schools had to close, and I was at a meeting of some kind with older ladies, and they were so concerned how the little girls were going to keep warm when they went to town to school, because they could wear their slacks in the country school and they weren't allowed, I mean, under their skirts. Everybody wore a skirt. And that in the town schools, they had to take those little slacks off when they got to school. So these ladies were really concerned that the girls were going to be cold in school.
I think that's funny because there's some parents of some of the students up here, and the next note I'll be giving them at conferences is their trip for the one-room schoolhouse, and it says on there that if girls would like to, they can wear a skirt or a dress that day if they would like to be in the traditional outfit, and it's okay to wear leggings underneath if you want to stay warm.
Well, I just want to commend you and your students. This was excellent. I remember visiting the one-room schools with my dad when he was county superintendent. I lived in town and I went to school in town. So I have a pretty good picture of what happened at the one-room school. And now everybody here also has a good picture because of your presentation. Thank you.
I just want to mention there is one more schoolhouse that you could visit. Chuck and Chris Cornelius redid Jackson number 9. Okay. And they pulled stuff out of Grandma had saved everything. And then things just kind of filtered home. You know, the globe and the records, the bird song records, and
okay, good to
even
know.
in the outfit, in the outhouse when they dug that out, they found a bracelet that had LMP on it. Lucille Marie Peters.
Oh. Maybe happy to see that again.
She didn't remember, but she probably got in trouble.
When I went to one-room country school when I was 6th grade, and one of the girls dropped her necklace down the, and us boys went over and tipped it over, and they took me down, and I picked it up. I was a farm boy, and it didn't smell any worse than what the cows was about.
Oh boy.
I went to Grasper number 8, east of Maquoketa. And we used to have our dinner buckets and put them in the entryway as we came into the schoolroom. And one noon we went out and half of the buckets were gone. They found them later in a culvert down the road where somebody, poor man or somebody had picked them up and ate their dinner.
You know, it's interesting you say that. Back in the day of the hobos, and I haven't really talked to them about that yet, but if there was a one-room schoolhouse, especially close to a train, there were sometimes that was a refuge for somebody who was a hobo, and they might spend the night there, or they might spend a whole entire weekend there. There was a story I read that the teacher came that morning. There was she had just had the kids create something with like the noodles that hadn't been cooked yet, but that hobo person ate the noodles because that's how desperate they were to have something in their belly before they caught the next train.
For your students, what did you guys find out that was most interesting to you?
Come over to the mic if you want to share something that was most interesting to you.
What did you learn that really stuck in your brain?
Come on down, Belle. What stuck out to you from learning today?
The thing that stuck out to me from learning today is that back in the day they had prettier dresses. That really stuck out to me.
They did.
How did they get the material to have prettier dresses when they're back in the day. How does that make sense?
Anybody else want to share a thought? Lily, come on over.
It's always fun to hear from the mouths of babes.
Serious.
So, what stuck out to me today was when we were at the Jackson County Historical Society, and somebody that was helping us today, Miss Mayberry, I think, she took me upstairs and showed me that some of the museum was having some, like, it had like some of my great grandma McNeil's dresses, and there were some dresses from great grandma McNeil, or it could have been more, great grandma, and had like something great grandma, and she made lots of dresses, and some of the dresses were upstairs on mannequins.
Very nice. Thank you, Lily. That was great.
The thing that interests me the most was at the Historical Society that I got to ring the bell, and it was really loud.
Sounds like a boy, doesn't it?
Go ahead.
Betty taught me and my 5 children. The last one was, she subbed for Mrs. Hogan. And I went there from kindergarten to 2nd. My biggest moment was learning penmanship. Oh my goodness. And to this day I love to write. And the most fun was, because there were different grades, if we wanted and we were done with our work, she'd let us do the time test with older kids and go as far as we could. And I think that was huge. And then she had a big sandbox full of white sand, and we used to get to play in that.
She told me to make sure to point that out if there is one at North Bend. So I noticed there was a frame of one at the Historical Society today, but I didn't point it out for the students to see. Just something else that was really neat, another bell that was in a case there was one that was at the academy, and when that fire happened, that bell fell all the way from the bell tower down into the basement, and the kids actually looked for it for about 3 weeks, you said, Bonnie? And they couldn't find it within that fire rubble, and then they sent equipment in to clean it up, and then they did, under like layers of brick and whatnot, they did find that bell and get it out of there. Thought that was a good story.
When you were talking about keeping warm, my dad said in the wintertime, most of the kids rode their horses or ponies bareback to school to keep warm. And I think, oh my God, that school must have smelled really good once they get the heat going and that. But he said it kept them warm.
Well, can I just have Betty tell her one story about the bad storm of snow?
About what? The bad snowstorm?
The pony that had to be left?
The pony?
I asked her what happened when there was inclement weather back then. How did we know? There was no news or radio that really told us. So when a decision was made, what happened? So I'll have her tell that.
Before I tell it, I want to answer the student about the dresses. The parents bought a feed and that had print, and they would be sure to get 2 or 3 sacks with the same print, and that's what made our pretty dresses. My father made a cart, and we had a pony named Babe, and 2 boys lived below us, and they walked up to our house and got on the cart, and then we drove on and picked up 2 more children, and Babe, our horse, hauled us to school. So I always kidded my brother and told him he was, that was a bus driver. And later he did drive the bus for Maquoketa. Gail Stickley was his name. Anyhow, to answer the question, we had a very, very bad snowstorm. And Gail knew he could not hitch Babe to the cart and go home. So what he did was just pull Babe. And the storm got so bad, 1936, I think was the year. And anyhow, Gail tied him to a fence post. And we were really mad at our dad. Why didn't he come get us, you know? Anyhow, we got home, and Dad was in what you call the mud room or the back room, making homemade ice cream. Well, when we saw the ice cream, we forgot about being mad. And Dad went and got Babe. Anyhow, it was bad.
I'd just like to tell a couple things about North Bend and issue a warning to the boys.
Oh, listen, boys.
The first class we had out there were kids your age, and we split them up into different groups, but eventually I could see the teachers going, well, 7 boys had disappeared. And one of the ladies said, where could they be? Well, I, having been a 3rd grade boy, knew exactly where they were. They were in the outhouse, and they could not get out. So, and one of the mothers, she said, what are they all doing in there? I said, don't ask questions, you don't want to know the answers. So I told them, my biggest fear was that one of the boys was going to end up in the outhouse pit because there's no cover on it. So I said, get the skinniest boy over to where the door opens, and so we got him out, and then the second skinniest, and we went that way until all 7 boys were out. So, it's only a 1-seater, guys, so.
One person at a time.
One person at a time. So, and in the schoolhouse, when you go in, there's 2 rooms. One was for the boys' coats, one was for the girls. And actually, there was a teacher that when she taught there, Mrs. Noss, that's where she lived, was in that room. So, wow. And I encourage the girls, go to the outhouse, don't go out, take a look at it and say, I can hold it, because we've had that happen.
You can handle it. It won't be bad.
Even the time when there was a dried snake skin up.
Don't freak him out!
It's like, it's fine, it's gone, but it's just a different experience than going to, a modern bathroom.
Yes.
Do you kids know what happened to the schools when they closed them?
Not all of them.
They yes.
Some of them turned into community buildings.
Some of them did.
Some of them, well, most of them were turned to homes.
Okay.
Some of them turned into museums.
Yeah.
Some got demolished.
Okay, most of the time what happened was they went back to the landowner who had donated.
Oh, we didn't talk about that part.
Did you?
No, we didn't.
Yeah. So one of them was on my grandfather's land. And so my grandmother had the school desk in her house and the bell, and some people, everything went other places. Well, the sandboxes they were talking about, they were like this big and about this deep. And they put sand in them, only I didn't know that. But it was up on the seed belt where the seed corn would come in and we'd husk it and then we'd put it in bins and dry it and then bag it, One time my dad, we always counted germination tests with seed corn. We'd count 100 kernels and let them grow and then we'd check to see how they germinated. But he needed a better test, so he brought that over to our house, put it over the floor register, this was in the old house, lined it with plastic, put dirt in it, and grew corn. And so things survived, and it's in the schoolhouse now.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, so things could be used for a lot of things, but nothing got thrown. Well, my other grandfather got one back, and my mom was busy pulling stuff off the hay wagon while he took everything to the ditch.
Oh.
Grandpa said it was junk. So there you got two perspectives.
This one-room school I went to, it had two bad houses, and we had a storm cellar, and a well, and the trees, and the next year, it was a cornfield. They just come in and, that happened to a lot of them too, I think.
There are two places in Iowa that I know of where rural schools have been preserved in their original condition. One is between Lisbon and Mount Vernon. It's called the Abbey Creek School. It's where my dad went to school. He grew up on a farm near Lisbon. And the other one is on the University of Northern Iowa campus in Cedar Falls. They moved a rural school onto campus and restored the interior. They had a fund drive, and many of us alum gave towards that, and it's very authentic. Now, neither one is very close, but if you ever get in the area and are interested, I think the one on the Northern Iowa campus is open most of the time. I don't know about the Abbey Creek one, whether you have to be there during certain hours or not.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much. Go ahead, Donald.
Point out a couple of things. The sandboxes were in the schools for the kids who were under 5. And if a mother had a big project, tanning, gardening, her in-laws were there, she'd send the little kids to the school to be babysat, and that's what the sandbox was for. Now, while the little kids were at that school, all of the people there, the teachers, students, they all were responsible, by volunteering, to take care of that kid. And they were listening, whether they thought they were paying attention or not. They were absorbing the lessons that were going on and all of that. And as far as the school closings, used to be a guy named Bill Sherman, who just passed away, who was the guru of country schools. So the school closings in 1966 were only for non-parochial schools. So that's why the Catholic schools were set aside. And I think Abbey Creek maybe was one of them as well that wasn't closed, And I want to clarify something Nancy said too. When the school closed, the land went back to the original parcel of land, not the landowner necessarily, just whoever owned the farm at that time.
And the contents.
And the contents.
Okay.
Yeah. So it gets a little complicated.
But they did lessons with that sand too.
Well, yeah, they did lessons with the sand too, but that's why they were there. So I'm done talking now, believe it or not.
Well, Bonnie's looking at me, so.
So creative teachers did a lot of lessons with the sandbox. They moistened the sand, and they would do battlefields for the Civil War. They would do little dioramas. They would do a lot of things with the sandbox. And I'd just like to make one more point. Dale mentioned storm cellars. And all the little country schools had to have a storm cellar where the children could go in case there was a tornado, something came through. Well, Central School, and I don't remember the other, Hickory Grove Central School, Hickory Grove thing. Hickory Grove had a storm cellar. And during the winter, the kids were having snowball fights, et cetera, et cetera. And unbeknownst to the teacher, that storm cellar got packed with snow. They packed it all the way full of snow, and that snow was still frozen in July. Luckily, there was no tornado, so that they needed it.
Goodness. Well, this afternoon, our students will be going upstairs. So again, thank you to Bonnie Mitchell, and she also has some librarians to help us out. So they will be going upstairs, and they have a partner. They will be assigned to a township, and they have a little note catcher for each one-room schoolhouse that is there. So thank you so much for letting us present today. I really wanted to have them kind of showcase what neat things are happening in Maquoketa schools for learning. We have great things here.
So I have a good reason of why they should drink separate when there was only one spoon in this thing, because some people might have allergies.
That's a good. Thank you. We got a little time. We got a little time. You all right? Phil wants to say something. Okay.
I don't think people knew when they were sick back then, because they probably didn't have thermometers or like stuff. So the teachers probably thought it was okay to drink out of that, but probably really wasn't.
All right. Thank you.
And thank you all for coming today.
Wonderful children. It's just so great. Thanks to Jenna Spain, beautiful teacher. Thank you so much. And I just hope that, boys and girls, I just hope that you appreciate the blessings that you have living in this wonderful free country where you can go to school, where girls can go to school, because some places girls can't go to school, but that you have fine schools and wonderful teachers like Mrs. Spain, and you can learn as much as you want to learn. You can learn, and you can be anything you want to be. So thank you all for coming. Thank you.